Good evening, everyone. This is a Soft Skills Masterclass for students. Thank you for joining today's section of our Soft Skills Masterclass. My name is Abiola again. Awokiyesi. I'm a Soft Skills instructor at Mindklass. So as an introduction to the topic we are looking at today, we're looking at the life of a woman whose life is very remarkable, who is known as Harriet Tubman. Harriet Tubman happened to be a woman who was born slave, whose mother was a slave, whose sisters were also slaves. She was born in the mid-19th century. And it happened that despite the fact that she was born as a slave, she had a vision to see freedom. She has a vision to live as a free person, free human being. And she didn't just see this vision for herself. She also saw the vision for her sisters, her families, and friends. So as a result of her passion to be free, she identified that her master had determined to sell her to the slave market. As a result of this, she made the effort to flee to freedom, to a state where the then white and black frown at slavery. So in her effort to run away from the plantation of her master in Maryland then, she was trapped on a bridge by her master on both sides of the bridge. And then she made the remarkable statement. She said, there is one of two things I had a right to, liberty or death. If I could not have one, I would have the other. And Harriet Tubman made this decision and she jumped into a river. A very high bridge. From the bridge, she jumped into a river. So we're looking at the life of Harriet Tubman, how she moved from being a slave to become a free person. She didn't just live as a free human being, she also made the effort to go back to a slave society at Maryland, where she made the effort, she sacrificed and risked her life to see her family and friends freed from their then slave masters. And that's why we are looking at the topic today, the attitude of service. The attitude of service. Sorry, there's an error in the spelling of attitude here. So we are looking at the topic today, the attitude of service. The quote for today is that you will find yourself when you lose yourself in the service of others. That is a quote by MOHANDAS MAHATMA GANDHI, who said one of the best ways to discover the hidden potentials in you, to find your true self, to find possibly what you are born for. One of the easy way and beautiful way to identify that is to lose yourself, is to get engaged in serving others. And that is according to MOHANDAS MAHATMA GANDHI. And at the end of today's course, we trust that students will understand what is the attitude of service. They will understand who to serve. They will understand the aim of service. They would understand the exemplars of great attitude of service. That is to say, examples of the people who have showed great attitude of service. They will also understand the characteristics of people of great attitude of service. And lastly, we trust that at the end of today, our students will understand to lead the life of a servant leader. To lead the life of a servant leader. So the definition that we are looking at today is the attitude of service. And we said the attitude of service is the act of thinking, feeling, and acting to set aside a part or whole of one's life, energy, time, and resources to the growth of a person, group, an idea, community, or country. If you look at, or if you remember what we discussed in the last class about what attitude is, we made mention that attitude has to do with your thinking, your feeling, and your acting, which is the ultimate determinant or what determines human action. The way you think, your mode of thinking, the content of your thoughts will determine your feelings, how you feel, which will either lead to your growth or your downward trend. And lastly, your acting, your behavior, your action, how you portray yourself to yourself and others. So this is what we said attitude is. Now, talking about service has to do with the setting apart. Either a part. Now, a part has to do with the fact that you devote a part of your time, a part of your life. So a particular cause for a particular purpose, or all of your time. Those who dedicate all of your time are the likes of Nelson Mandela of South Africa. These are the likes of Abraham Lincoln of the United States of America. These are the likes of MOHANDAS Mahatma Gandhi of India. These are the ones who gave either all or part of their time, energy, and resources. So as a young person, you might be thinking, I don't have the money. I might not even have all the time to serve or give myself devotedly to the life of others. But the point here is that you can give your energy. You can give your time. You can give the little of the resources that you have. Out of the little that you are given to take to school, you can save. You can use that to contribute to the life of others. So the essence of service is to see to the growth of either a person. As a teacher, your service can be to see the growth of a particular person, like the teachers of Ben Carson gave themselves to the growth of Ben Carson, to see to the change of the mindset of Ben Carson from a failure mindset to the mindset of success. The attitude of service also see to the growth of a group. For example, if you are a Muslim, you give yourself devotedly to your Islamic group that you belong to. If you're a Christian, you give yourself devotedly to your church. If you belong to a club or something, you give yourself devotedly to that club to see to the growth of every member of the club. Like we read about Professor Wole Soyinka, that when he was an undergraduate, he was one of the presidents who started this course. And we read then that court used to be a socially accepted group, a group that was accepted by everyone, which have a positive purpose then. So he gave himself to the group to ensure that the rights of students in the then universities were protected. So you can also give yourself to an idea. It can be a business idea. You can give yourself to the growth of your community. For example, as a young student, when you finish your graduate program and you happen to serve in a community, either in the southwest, southeast, or in the northern part of the country, you'll be required to carry out a community development program. So if you are the kind of person who has the attitude of service, it is expected of you that when you get to the community, that the first thing, or one of the first things you do is to understand the community, understand their problem, understand their peculiarity, see how you can be an agent of change through your positive, your attitude of service to that community. See if they lack water, see if they lack one resource or the other, and see how you can contribute to their growth or development. When I was serving in Kano, to do what Danka Day, I contributed to a community development program. So I trained over 300 students in Tuduwada Janka Day in Kano in various skills like soap making, azia making, and a lot of other things, which I trained them in over 10 products. And a number of the students started commercializing the product when I was serving in Kano there. So you can also give yourself committedly to your country, like we'll be looking at the life of many who did this in the course of today's course. So The next point here is that who to serve. So as a person, you might be wondering, who should be served? Who to serve? There's an error in the definition of service here. So it ought to be who to serve. So who to serve? Number one is you serve yourself. You serve yourself. The greatest service is a service that is done to oneself, because it is the extent, it is the quality and quantity of the service to yourself that will determine the quality and quantity of the service you render to someone else. If you are not positive in your thinking, if you are not developing your feeling, if you don't have good emotions, if you don't have good words coming out of your mouth, if your beliefs are negative, if they are not uplifting, if your actions are not right, you wouldn't be able to exhibit the attitude of service. Number two is family and friends. It is expected as a child that you give yourself committedly to serving your parents, to serving your siblings. That when you are asked or required to do an activity or the other, you give yourself absolutely to that cause. This is important. Or as a student in a school, you give yourself committedly to them. Or as a parent, it is your responsibility, not the responsibility of teachers. You are the president, you are the coach, you are the psychologist, you are the teacher, number one teacher of your children. This is important because students spend a larger chunk of their life with parents at home, not with teachers, not in schools. So your service can also be to your relative, it can be to your colleagues, it can be to acquaintances, it can also be to your roommates, it can be to your schoolmates. So you also give yourself to serve in your religious institution, in your club, in your social group. You give yourself to serve the challenge, the needy, the less privileged, those who might not be able to afford what you have either little of or in abundance. Number five, you give yourself committedly to serve the animals that are in your possession. The moment you say you want to possess a living thing, it is expected that you give yourself to meet the need of that thing. Number six, those who serve are one of the persons that you give your service to. This can be your clerics, it can be an NGO, it can be to a volunteering organization. So you give yourself also to those who serve. Also your environment. You don't contribute to the pollution, to the water pollution, to the environmental pollution, to the depletion of your ozone layer. You don't contribute to that. You ensure that you make efforts to increase the growth of green plants around you, that we might have healthy environments. So all these are one of the ways to contribute to the environment. Another point is you contribute to your society, to your community, to your states. Like we'll be looking at the professor, the late Professor Dora Akuili today, who gave herself to ensure that she fought counterfeit drugs out of the country. And she gave herself to that. So these are the 8 ways through which, as a person, you can give yourself to serving others. So what is the aim of serving? Number one is to fulfill one of the ultimate purpose of life. A very important, a very germane purpose of life is to serve. Everything that exists serve in a way or the other. And the moment most of these things that exist in the world today, the moment they stop serving, they start dying. A very good example is a green plant. The green plant serves by giving us food, giving us fruits, giving us oxygen that we breathe in as human, and they also breathe in the carbon dioxide, which is toxic. They breathe that in, what is toxic to us. So the ultimate purpose of life, or one of the ultimate purpose of life, is to serve. So you have to ensure that you fulfill that. Another point is to relieve suffering in the world. One of the very, very important reasons why you must serve is because there will always be suffering in the world. Suffering will always abound in the world, in your environment, in your community. But one of the reasons why you need to develop yourself in your academics, develop yourself in your business, in every of your endeavor. And in the end, when you accumulate so much wealth, it is expected that you relieve the suffering of others around you. A good example is displayed by the founder of UBA, who is known as Mr. Tony Elumelu. So you must ensure that you give yourself so serving to relieve the suffering of others. Number 3 is to put one's talents, gifts, knowledge, and experiences to use. If you have talent of singing, talent of writing, talent of web designing, talent of whatever sort, it is expected that you use these talents to develop others, to improve others, to push the wall of knowledge further. Number 4 is to promote mental well-being. When you give yourself to serving, it promotes your mental well-being. You feel right about yourself. You feel happy. You feel joyful about yourself. But those who don't serve, who isolate and keep themselves in a particular place, they are always victim of depression, anxiety, and sadness. But those who engage in the activity of the service of others, they are the most joyful, the most happy people in the world today. Then another point is to give hope to the less privileged. We always have people who are not as privileged as we are around us. Another point is to increase self-esteem and sense of self-worth of oneself. When you give yourself to serving others, it increases your self-esteem. You feel right about yourself. You have a sense of respect towards yourself. You have a sense of importance to yourself. You have a sense of the fact that you count in the world. And this is important for your mental well-being. And the last point is to promote the development of people, group, and the society. Like the popular saying that in the future, that the knowledge will increase. Now, people right from the creation of the world has always been contributing to the improvement and the growth of knowledge. My question to you is that how are you going to contribute to the improvement and the development of knowledge in the world today? Someone improved and contributed to the development of knowledge by inventing the aeroplane, by inventing the telephone. So what will be your contribution? This is very important. So I want to look at the exemplars of the attitude of service. We'll be looking at, firstly, Harriet Tubman. Harriet Tubman, like we talked about in the introductory section of this course, she jumped into a river and miraculously she survived. And she ran on foot for around 100 miles to freedom in Philadelphia in the year 1849. This woman took this risk to walk away into freedom. If she had not taken the risk, she would possibly not have lived up to 90 plus that she lived, I think 91. So she took this risk, and as a result of that, many followed. Many also were freed. Another point is that she, afterward, when she walked into freedom in Philadelphia, she reached her life again, went back to her family to rescue her friends and family to come and enjoy the freedom that she was enjoying in Philadelphia. She worked as an underground railroad conductor and devoted her life to rescuing slaves. In the course of her life, she rescued over 300 slaves from their slave masters into freedom. Harriet Tubman. Another person I'll be looking at today is our Nigerian Professor Dora Akili, who happened to be a remarkable woman who is known for her integrity, her diligence, attitude of service. And one of the story of her life that will never be forgotten in history was that when she was serving as the zonal secretary of PTF, which is a petroleum trust fund, she happened to develop a cancerous ailment, which required that she go abroad for medical surgery. And when she got there, she was given an amount of money, which was around $5 million, 5 million naira rather. for America bills, transport, and every other expenses. When she got there, when they performed a pre-surgical checkup on her, they discovered that she does not need to undergo surgery. That's what she was diagnosed of was not really the case. And surprisingly, she wowed all and sundry, everyone in the world, in Nigeria particularly, when she turned the $12,000 that was given to her as a medical bill, she turned it back into the account of the Petroleum Trust Fund, where many would have embezzled the money. This woman gave herself committedly when she was appointed as the chairman of NAFDAC as a result of her attitude of service and integrity by the then President Obasanjo. She was appointed and she gave herself to fight against drug counterfeiting in the country. Her attitude of service was recognized and honored with the OFR honor by the then President Olusegun Obasanjo. So the second life that we are looking at is the world-renowned Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela happened to be a freedom fighter. He is one of the most respected, most celebrated leader, not just in Africa, but in the world. How did he serve? He served the Black South Africans by fighting apartheid, which was the principle of racial discrimination in a dense South Africa. In the course of his fights to see the blacks free from their bondage, he went to prison for 27 years. He also suffered when he was buried from the neck downward, deep in the ground. He suffered to see that the blacks enjoy their freedom, which he eventually achieved. Upon his release, he came to be the first democratically elected president of South Africa in the year 1994. The last set of people that we are looking at today are those who contributed to the global world. These are the likes of Thomas Edison, the Wright brothers, and Dr. William Chester Minor. Thomas Edison, like we all know, contributed to the invention of the light bulb. Thomas Edison often said that it is often said that Thomas Edison failed 99, or some people said 99,999 times. But Thomas Edison often replied saying, I have never failed 99 times. I have only discovered 99 ways which causes failure. So it was the diligence, resilience, unrelenting attitude of Thomas Edison that brought the world the development of the light bulb. The Wright brothers also, in their habits of the attitude of service, particularly Orville Wright, who happens to be the junior brother, when they were carrying out the testing of their flight experiments, Orville Wright had a crash. But in the course of this crash, they never gave up. They kept on applying their knowledge to see to the invention of the aeroplane. So as a student, you might want to ask yourself, have you made an attempt to understand what you are doing to the extent of getting odds? Have you failed up to the level of Thomas Edison, who failed 99 times when you are trying to work out that calculation? So you must understand that you have not done enough. All that you have done is not all that there is to be done. There are more to be done. Why Dr. William Chester Minor happens to be a prisoner, an American surgeon, a murderer who was held in lunatic asylum. But the life of this man changed when the news got to him that a man named Dr. Murray was working on putting together the English word of the word in a single book, the then Oxford Dictionary. And this man changed the history of his life when he decided to dedicate himself to contribute to the development of the quotes, the words, and the Oxford Dictionary. William Chester Manuel. It changed the history, what it used to be known for. So, what are the characteristics of people with great attitude of service? Number one is leadership skills. You must understand that as you walk along serving others, you must ensure that you develop your leadership skills. And leadership simply means taking the lead in what you are doing. History added that Harriet Tubman, in one of his journey, while he was taking the slaves to escape slavery, they met a river, and Tubman said, "We are going to cross this river." But the slaves were pessimistic that, "Are we going to cross this river?" And they said, "No way, we are not going." Surprisingly, Harriet Tubman never argued with them. She solely walked in the river until she crossed to the other side of the river. And when others saw that she had gone through over the river, they followed her. And that is leadership. Leadership means taking the lead in your field. It means taking the lead in what you are doing. The number two is integrity. Nelson Mandela is one of the most moral person in the world. While many were power drunk, it happened that Nelson Mandela never ran for office the second time. He only became the president of South Africa just once. While many presidents of the world met him then that he should run the second time, but Nelson Mandela never ran the second time. He has the ability to put his emotions under control. Like it is often said that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So integrity is one of the attributes that is very, very crucial when you give yourself to serving others. Professor Dora Akunyili got appointed as the chairman of NAFDAC majorly because of her reputation, what she was known to represent when she was serving as the secretary of the PTF. So it is important as a young person that you lead a life of service, a life of service. Number three is death to fear and death itself. If you will ever make anything remarkable, anything noteworthy, anything that is going to be globally transformational, you must overcome the death of fear and the death and be dead to death itself. Gandhi suffered and he died in the pursuit of his course of action. Abraham Lincoln, before he died, he saw a vision of himself in a coffin. And that is a picture that death is before you. But this man never stopped from achieving one of the ultimate purpose of life, which he said it is service. He never stopped until he ended the then slavery system. Number four is empathy. You must ensure that as you lead a life of the attitude of service, that you put yourself in the shoes of others. And that was what Harriet Tubman did. When she got to Philadelphia, she actually imagined herself in the shoe of her families and friends that she left behind at Maryland. And she had no option, but she decided that she had to go back. She went back, and miraculously, she rescued her parents, she rescued her friends. And she gave herself to rescuing slaves from their then slave master. Number five is patience. Every good, great act of service requires patience. If you ever work on an idea that will work, like the idea of the Wright brothers, you will need a great patience. If you ever work out that equation, you will need to be patient with yourself. Thomas Edison understood that it will require patience for him to have tried several times that a light bulb never emerged. So patience is a crucial virtue in service. Number 6 is we-feeling. We-feeling is an attitude of thinking in group, thinking about others, putting others into consideration, not just a selfish thinking. Mandela, when he was leaving prison, even before he left prison, he had been, promised respectable position to put an end to the revolting of the South African against the damn whites, that he should promise that if they release him, that it would stop his people from fighting against the damn white leaders. But he said, if his people is not free, then he does not deserve to be free. When he was leaving the damn prison walls, Nelson Mandela said, I would still be in prison if I never let go of my bitterness, anger, and hatred. And as a result of this, to see to the development and the growth of the country, South Africa, Nelson Mandela united both the white and the black. He never decided that the whites should go, that they should leave their country. He seek to ensure that they all work together to see to the growth of South Africa. Number 7 is visionary and resilient. If you want to cultivate the attitude of service, you must be visionary and you must be resilient. Great men and women that we looked at today, they all have just one course of action, one purpose, one vision. And they stuck to that particular purpose and vision to the end. Like Tubman, vision was to see the slave freed. Mandela was to see the black South Africans free. Dora Akili was to see that Nigeria is free from drug counterfeits. So the last point here today is that those who have the attitude of service are those who are willing to suffer. Nelson Mandela suffered 27 years in prison. The Wright brothers had several accidents before they could come up with a heavier than air flight machine in the year 1903. Tubman jumped into the river, risking her life to suffer and walk on barefoot for around 100 miles to freedom. So you must be willing to suffer as a person. And as we conclude today, we'll be looking at the life of the man, Alfred Noble. Alfred Noble happened to be known renownedly as a man who invented dynamite and other explosives. He's a famous chemist, engineer, and a creative inventor. In the year 1888, it happened that a brother of Alfred Noble died, whose name is Ludwig. And a French newspaper mistook the death of Ludwig for Alfred Noble. And they published and wrote in a paper by describing Alfred as the merchant of death. And the reason why he was described as the merchant of death is because Alfred Noble happened to have grown very rich by devising a faster way to have multiple people killed. So because he developed dynamite and explosive that is often used in war and in interstate fights. And as a result of that, they label him the merchant of death. The error was later corrected, but Alfred Noble was never the same. Afterward, it decided to change what he would be known for after he died by devoting a large chunk of his wealth, which is worth over $250 million today, to those who in the future would have done a great benefit for mankind. And that is how Alfred Nobel changed the course of his life, changed what he would be known for. By not just serving by his time, by not just serving with his energy, but he gave his resources. So see to the service of the world. And that is why we have Professor Wole Soyinka as one of the beneficiaries of the award that is often given by the Nobel Peace Prize by Alfred Nobel. Do not forget that the quote for today is, you will find yourself when you lose yourself in the service of others. You will find yourself when you lose yourself in the service of others, according to MOHANDAS, Mahatma Gandhi. So as we discuss today, what is your take-home lesson for today? What will be your take-home lesson for today? That will be our discussion for today. So I'd like to ask if there's anyone who has a question from today's class. So I'd like to say thank you to everyone who took part in today's Soft Skills Masterclass. Thank you very much for your presence, particularly Mrs. Atutu Abiola. Thank you very much for your presence. And we'll see, hopefully, if our guest speaker will be available tomorrow. I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you very much.